What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for tuning in on today's video. We have an exciting video today because we have finally received our Kill Devil Diesel Icon Raceport big valve heads. Yes, finally they have arrived. I think when I ordered them, it was like 8 to 12 weeks. And yeah, obviously it was more like 8 to 12 months. I think they got a lot more orders than what they initially anticipated. But the wait is finally over, and honestly, it's been a little bit of a blessing in disguise because we've been able to make other improvements to our engine and to our truck since we had to wait so long. And so next year, 2023, is going to be just incredibly amazing for our race truck. I'm really excited, and so let's jump into today's video. We are going to be going over these heads. I also have a factory head that we're going to be doing some measuring and comparing to. And I'm also going to weigh these both as well. So we're going to really kind of dig into these heads and just inspect them and kind of do a full look over on these heads and kind of a comparison to a factory head. I was planning on doing a full unboxing and like a first reaction video, but my self-control had failed me and we had already opened one up. So I've already actually opened these up and seen these. And so, unfortunately, you guys won't be able to see my first initial reaction, even though seeing them for a second time, I'm just as excited. So, let's dig into it. Let's kind of show you guys what we did to our Icon heads. We had some extra things done to them, other than just the standard, setup. And then, we'll start doing some measuring and some weighing and kind of just go over initial first impressions. Let's do it. So first things first, I've seen how they package their cylinder heads. Their boxes are amazing. They strap them. They also use these little staples, these really strong staples. They've got the foam, and then they bag them inside of a bag. And then they have this cover piece that goes over top of your sealing surface. So as far as packaging goes, they are on point. They've got all the packaging down, which is really nice. So initially, open it up. We've got instructions here. We've got a nice cool sticker, of course. First things first, because these are ported, they are. You can see these top 4 bolts. You actually have to put sealant on them because they intrude into a air passage that goes into your engine. So I'm going to review that. I'll show you guys that. You can actually see the port, and it goes, yeah, it literally punches through and goes into a intake port. So I will show you guys that. So that's one of the first things they show you. And then, of course, we have a warranty and return policy. Nothing crazy here. We did get the 18 millimeter heads because our engine is actually a 2004 engine. So it for sure has 18 millimeter heads. And so we should be able to just get our 18 mil dowels, and these will bolt right on. So let's go over these awesome heads and kind of what I've spec'd them out to be. Now, something I need to distinguish right off the bat is the difference between the regular Icon street port heads versus the Icon race port heads. So the street port heads seem to be a lot more readily available right now. You can get them within a couple of weeks from what I've heard, and they offer them an 18 and 20 millimeter head, and it's basically as casted, and so they don't necessarily do anything crazy from what I understand. But basically, the way I understand it is they developed the casting for these, and they're having an outside source do the casting, and they've done certain things to the Icon series heads that allow it to just flow more. So that as casted, they are already flowing way better than the factory heads. And so for you guys that are looking to replace your heads, at this point, iron heads are kind of, I mean, since KDD came out with these aluminum Icon series ones, going with an iron head, you know, other than the cost effectiveness, you might as well just bump up to the Icon aluminum series heads. And because the flow, you get the O-rings, you're already paying for a lot of the things that you're going to in the iron heads, but the weight savings that you're going to gain with these is just phenomenal. And then the added airflow as well. It's insane. So as casted, these things perform amazing right out of the box. So But there is a distinction between the street port and the race port. So we got the race port. So it's even got additional porting. So after they cast them, then they go back into them and they port them even more, from what I understand, than the street port setup. And then the other thing you can get is the bigger valves. So because they're able to port them out larger, you can also get, these valves are all bigger than just their normal street port, and also bigger, obviously, than your standard iron heads as well. So we've got the bigger valves, and we've got the race porting as the standard setup on our Icon Raceport Series setup. From there, we've got 120-pound springs. So all of our valve springs are set at 120 pounds. And then they actually, as it was on their Facebook and they had posted something, they had done some extra coating on one of their customers' heads, and so we ended up getting that. So we got the upgrade for our combustion chambers, so all of this coating throughout our combustion chambers. And then also on the exhaust side, you can see we've got the coating inside of all of our exhaust ports as well. So that was another added benefit. So these are bad to the bone. Basically that's what that means. And they're going to flow a ton, and they're going to be super reliable for us, and they're going to lighten up the front end of the truck like you wouldn't believe. Like I said, we are going to get these things on a scale. So we pulled this plastic piece off that kind of sticks to this, and this kind of fell out. So this is some material, obviously, from when they did their porting or machining. And then if you look on here, you can see some extra debris, some smaller pieces. So definitely going to have to send these through a wash tank, blow them dry, blow out all of our ports, maybe even get our scrubber brushes and just go through all the ports, because obviously we don't want any of this stuff to get down into our oil pan and cause an issue. So that is, I mean, overall, that's pretty standard. Anytime you get something that's been machined, you need to just make sure you clean it really, really well, because you are going to end up with, I mean, these chunks are kind of big, but a lot of these smaller stuff over here is pretty standard. Same thing, like if you get any machine work done to your block, cleaning it really, really well is like the first thing you're going to want to do. So just wanted to point that out, that you are going to want to make sure that you clean this up really, really well. Now, some of the big concerns going to an aluminum head is integrity, right? So being an aluminum head, is it going to crack on me? Am I going to have issues going from obviously an iron head to a aluminum head? Well, I can tell you that Kill Devil Diesel, like if you look in this area right here where all of our valves are, this is just a factory head off of a 6.0, and we go to this, you can see all of this extra material and webbing that they created when they designed these heads. So they've created a lot of structural integrity within these heads to prevent any form of cracking or warping within these heads. So you can just see how much, like even like look through here, you can see these huge pieces that are coming. But not only are they coming out, but they are the full width of this head compared to your factory iron heads. So big time upgrade as far as strength between the iron and the aluminum head here. And I believe these ports here are going to have coolant that goes past them. So you can see instead of like just a freeze plug, they've actually drilled and tapped and put a plug in each one of these parts here. Again, adding to the reliability of these heads. And then if we want to look here, so these are the ports that you need to add. I'm just going to stick my finger. I don't know if I can quite get to it. Get to that port. But that goes clear through to your intake port right here. So this intake port goes down through there. And that's why you have to put sealant on those top 4 bolts. So all the ones across the top here, you have to put thread sealant on them before you stick them in, or else you're going to be losing boost pressure through that hole, and it's going to pressurize your crankcase and blow out your glow plug harness and everything. So pretty cool there that we are to that point that these things are ported so much that we got to put thread sealant on bolts. Now, because we have the extra porting done to our Icon Series heads, we have the race port, we actually had to send out our odawgs S3R intake manifold out to Kill Devil Diesel, and then they port match these to our cylinder heads. And so they've actually opened these up a little bit more. And they're large enough that we can't even use a standard intake manifold gasket. So they send these with it. Once you get it port matched, they send you these custom. They're billet aluminum, and they've got these rubber seals or gaskets inside of here to seal everything up. So yeah, this was another added thing that goes along with our heads as well. So now our S3R is ported even more than what it initially was as well, enough to where we've got to get custom intake manifold gaskets. So that's pretty gnarly as well. All right, so we're going to take some quick measurements here of our intake ports real quick. Open this bad boy up. Got like 32 millimeters. Let's just do a quick comparison here. So you can see, obviously, that's not going to fit in there. We're going to open these bad boys up. And we're like 27, roughly. And so we're 32, 27. So quite a substantial difference there. I should mention, too, that they've got this, not really technology, but they're using this theory about swirl. And how the fuel is entering the combustion chamber. You guys will have to go on their website and do some looking on that. They've got a pretty detailed write-up about how they incorporated swirl into these heads and how that affects horsepower and how basically how the fuel is atomized inside of the chamber. So it's all about how the fuel mixes with your boost pressure or air inside of the combustion chamber. So like I said, check it out on their website there for that portion of it. So you can see the substantial difference between the factory iron heads versus our aluminum Icon series heads here. So we're going to go to the exhaust port and check those out. All right, so now we got our exhaust port here. Take a gander. We're at like 33, almost 34. Let's see, we're going to close this up a little bit. Open it up into here. We got like 31, almost 32. So about a 2 millimeter difference on the exhaust ports. So not as crazy of a difference between our exhaust ports as it was on our intake ports. But again, still quite a bit of substantial difference, 2 millimeters. I couldn't tell you how big of a difference that really makes, but I do know that it's obviously going to help, because if you're able to fit more air through there, and as Levon Miller once said, these diesel engines are like a big air moving system. They're just a giant air pump, right? So the more air you can cram into them and get out of them, the better off you are. So and because we have more air being able to flow into our engine, we obviously needed more porting on this side as well to help with the air going out. So we'll flip this thing over. We're going to measure our valves next. Okay, so we've got our two intake and our two exhaust. Exhaust ports or the exhaust valves are smaller than the intake valves. And so we're just going to take a quick measurement here. I'm going to be very, 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 very careful. Actually, we should go this way instead, if we can get it down in there. About 34, roughly. And we come down here to our factory head. Let's just lay this on here real quick. And we're like 33 and some change. So not a huge difference. But you can see the difference. But it's only equates to roughly a millimeter. So now we'll go to our exhaust here. We're at like 29 and some change. We'll go to these ones. These are like 27 and some change. So again, about a millimeter difference between our exhaust ports as well. So basically the valves are about 1 millimeter larger, you know. So how big of a difference does that make? I don't know. We'll see. I think the biggest benefits are going to be on our intake ports and the structural integrity and the weight and everything like that. These bigger valves are just kind of like little bonuses that go along with it. We were going to be getting valves in a head anyway, so might as well go with the bigger valves. Okay, and our final measurement, the one I'm most curious about, is going to be, we're going to scale these puppies and see what the major difference is here and how much we're going to be shedding off just by going to this aluminum head. So let's do it. Okay, iron head, 71 pounds. Aluminum head, 34.4. So we are roughly about 37 pounds per head difference for a grand total of 74 pounds. 37 times 2, 60. Yeah, 74 pounds. Almost, I mean, 25 pounds off from 100, but 74 pounds. I mean, that is substantial weight, really, especially coming off of the front end of our diesel truck, where we're trying to eliminate as much weight as we can up front, because our weight bias is going to be horrible just to begin with. So we're trying to take as much weight off the front end as we possibly can. That way we can hopefully get that center of gravity further back. I have made a decision that we're going to be keeping this thing two-wheel drive. So weight and our suspension setup on the rear, our suspension on setup on the front is going to be imperative. And something that's going to really help us is by just making this thing as light as possible up front so we can force that center of gravity further back. It's going to make tuning this suspension for our setup much easier if we can get as much weight off of the front end. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's kind of exciting. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully this was informative for you guys. Hopefully you guys kind of get excited like I am about having these heads finally here. If you watched my last video, now we are waiting on our Jessel setup for the engine, but that should be shipping out. I talked to the guy. He said they were in stock, so they should be showing up. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we should have our Jessel set up, and we're going to be starting to go back together with the engine. And then from there, we've got injectors. I've already got the turbo set up. I've already got the T4 kit. I've already got intercooler piping. I've already got all the other crap. So I've also got some awesome valve covers as well. So literally, we'll be able to order injectors, get those in, and engine will be able to go in, and we can start fabricating up front here for our cooler system setup that I talked about in the previous video as well. So a lot of exciting things. We're starting to move forward here. Really exciting. And thank you guys. We'll catch you in the next one.